Hi guys, and welcome back to another video here on David's PC channel. Today we are taking a first quick look and some sort of review on the Canon 50mm f1.8 Mark II prime lens. This lens is often called the Nifty 50 or Plastic Fantastic because of its build quality, but we're going to take a look at how well does it actually do as a lens. Now, as you can see, there's not really much in the box. The lens itself did come in protective bubble wrap, but of course I've removed that already just so you can take a look at the lens itself. The box itself is rather plain and simple. There's no lens hood, no pouch, and nothing else included. It just comes with a standard warranty, which the length of which depends on your location. The lens itself with the standard Canon lens cap, which can only be removed by squeezing on the sides. Sadly, there is no center pinch removal. And then, of course, there's the obligatory quick start guide. Let's jump in and take a closer look at the lens itself. So, taking a closer look at the lens itself, what we find immediately is that it is very, very light and very plasticky. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because lightweight means you're able to travel without having this long zoom hanging off the front of your camera, which puts less stress on your camera mount. But then again, it does feel very cheap, which is why it's often called the Plastic Fantastic. Taking a quick look around the lens itself, we see Canon branding, we see the also rather cheap autofocus to manual focus switch, we see the declaration of 50mm, and then the minimum focus distance of 45 centimeters or 1.5 feet. And then there is nothing. We get some ISO standards or some certifications, and then we're back to the front. What this also means though, this red dot, or what this lens is in particular, it's an EF mount lens, which means it will mount on any crop sensor like my camera, the Canon 60D, or any full frame camera like the 6D, 5D, or the 1D series. This means that it is completely compatible with every Canon EOS camera and kind of adds a lot of functionality because many cheaper lenses priced around this price range or even more expensive are only EFS compatible, which is only the crop sensor camera. This makes this a very good value lens even for full frame users because 50mm is often accepted as the standard focal length for full frame cameras, which best portrays what the human eye would see perspective wise. This camera in the front, as you can see, is a 52mm diameter, which means that any standard filter, like the one I have right here, will simply screw on. This is just a plain UV filter, and I actually recommend this to everyone who owns a camera like this. Mount a filter because it has very little effect. A UV filter has very little effect on your picture or in your image quality, no positive, no negative effect, but it does protect your lens in case you ever have something like a little child, for example, try to grab your lens from the front, and it does happen. Believe me, it's happened before, and I was very thankful that I had a lens filter which I could simply clean off afterwards. Now, as far as some technical specifications, this is the f1.8 Mark II. The Mark I had a much better build quality as well as a focus distance scale. Canon decided to remove this completely in the Mark II and push the price point to the $100 area. This means that this is the cheapest Canon lens you can purchase, and it is full frame compatible at the same time. A great value, and especially for a standard 50mm lens. It does come at a price. The build quality is very poor, but like I've explained before, the effect that it is a very light lens is not necessarily negative in all dimensions. It does have 5 straight aperture blades, which means your bokeh quality is not that great, but at f2.8 you still get a little bit of round bokeh unless it's a very bright light in the background, but we're going to see that more in the images. Also, sharpness is rather good, especially at this value. It's not excellent like from one of the Canon L series lenses, but it's definitely very respectable at the $100 price range. Let's take a look at some pictures I took with this lens and look at how it performs in the real world. So this is one of the shots I wanted to show you, mainly because of the bokeh background. Here you can clearly see the pentagonal out of focus blur. It's not very pretty, which is why this shot was kind of ruined by the characteristics of this lens. I could have shot it wide open, and when you shoot wide open you do get perfectly round bokeh. The problem is though the sharpness does dramatically decrease if shooting wide open, and I shot this at f2.8. Now I always have an unedited and edited version of each image to show you. So this would be the edited one. I didn't really change much. I added a little bit of sharpness to get the outline of the leaf a little bit more to pop, and I popped the reds a little bit. But still you can see that the bokeh does distract a lot from the center of focus. This next shot I'm much more pleased with already because the pentagonal diaphragm or aperture blades of the lens don't have an effect on the quality. Here you can see that with f2.8 I got a nice depth of field. I have most of these leaves which I want in focus, and then the grass is mainly blurred, whether it's closer or further away from the lens in this area. Now here I did edit it a little bit more. I popped the colors a little bit more, made it a little bit brighter. It was slightly underexposed. So here you can clearly see that with editing you can bring forth some more colors. Yeah, but this was a really great shot with this lens, and you can see that there's a lot of detail still, especially in the water drops. Let me zoom in a little bit here. You can see there's a lot of detail in the water drops still. You can even pick up a mosquito here. So at f2.8 this lens is very sharp. It does become softer towards the edges, which is something you do notice, but here this is just astonishing detail. So let's go to the next image, which I shot in Spain. It was just a tree that really looked cool, the way the branches split. And then here you can see that I shot this at f13. You can see this in the settings down here. And this is kind of to show you that you don't need to shoot such a wide aperture lens at a wide aperture, because I really wanted the area that was close to the camera, the stem, this area I wanted to be out of focus. But if I would have shot this at f2.8, this would have been blurred all the way up to here, and as of here it would have been completely blurred again. So I wanted to get more in focus, so you can really shoot this at f13. And then the edited version, here I cropped it a little bit, I added a little bit more sharpness, but you can already see that this lens is very, very sharp. At f13 also, it does degrade a little bit of sharpness as of f8, as I found, but with adding a little bit of post sharpness you can easily compensate for that. Now this is one more shot which I left completely unedited, so there's no edited version. It's just of this cat in the foreground, and here I just wanted to bring out, this was shot at f5, the really clear detail in the eyes and around the eyes and the nose. This lens is really great, and because it does allow you to shoot flexibly with aperture, you can get a fast shutter speed to make sure that you get that shot, to make sure that it's completely sharpened, that it's not blurred because of your motion. Yeah, basically it's a great lens so far, and you can apply it to nature, to animals, and also to architecture, as in the next picture. So here this is actually an HDR, so it's 3 exposures composed together. This was a building in Romania where I visited recently, and you can see that you do get quite a lot of sharpness. It's at f6.3, and you can see that you get plenty of sharpness here in the details. And I mean, some of the, maybe you can see a couple of double lines, but that would be due to the HDR compositing software. And then of course the edited one, popping the colors a little bit, adding some sharpness, adding some characteristics to this picture. But so this is just to show that you can use this lens for pretty much everything. 50mm is a good focal length. It is sometimes a little bit close for when you're indoors, but otherwise it's a great focal length because it shows you it's right in between the tele and the standard focal lengths, and on a crop sensor it just reaches that little bit further. So I think it's really quite a great lens. And then here, this was just a creative shot that I kind of messed up a little bit. Let me just show you the edited version.
excuse me, this was the edited version. Um, you can see you can do very long exposures. The problem was this was not on a tripod. But yeah, once again, just like the picture with the tree, you don't need to use this lens at a full wide aperture. You can use it for all kinds of creative purposes. I tried to stand still and did not quite succeed in that, to show that the water is moving and I'm not. But all in all, this lens, and I think I'm going to go back to this picture because I think this is a great example of what you can do with a $100 or franc or a little bit like 80, 90 euro lens from Canon. You can put it on a crop sensor camera, which does not need to be expensive, and you can go out, and if you find something that you find pretty, for example these leaves with these water droplets, you can go take a picture with this lens and you get great sharpness. Maybe not at the edge of the frame, maybe it's not quite as sharp there. You don't get great build quality, but what you do get is a very, very capable lens, which is able to do very many things for you at a very cheap price point, at a great value. So I definitely recommend this lens to anyone who has a Canon camera, and if you do have a Nikon camera, the same Nikon model has much better build quality, but does cost twice the amount at about $200. So really, for every Canon user, go and get this lens, be creative, go out and enjoy the low light capabilities, and I'm warning you, you will first start shooting at f1.8, and then you'll notice that it's just not sharp enough, and you'll stop it down to about 2.8, and then you'll start getting some really amazing shots. Thank you for watching, and please leave any feedback on this kind of new style of video I'm doing. There will be more content coming about photography and video, most definitely. I think that's what I'm going to go more in depth into in the future. So thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.